This is Elbath, the island of the giants. Everyone has been waiting for it for years. It was mentioned for the first time in... At the time, I was 3 years old. Today, I am almost 28. It's remarkable how time flies. Right in Tirada, on the cover page of the chapter. Because honestly, who can boast of having kept waiting for 25 years? Selector. But today, I think we're done waiting. Welcome to all in the complete analysis of the chapter on 1123. The truth about Sandy, the plan of Vegapunk. The role of the giants is the achievement, the most powerful of one. If you think you have missed important details in the chronology of events, but especially in the stakes of one, it doesn't matter, we'll see everything together again. So if you too are waiting for this damn island for years, it's time to board the ship. Subscribe to the channel and leave one maximum of blue thumbs, because we won't slow down for anyone anymore. You are ready. Direction the story. Vegapunk had planned everything from the beginning. He knew that York knew that he knew. He knew to Mauser Fleam, and knew that the world government knew that he knew for the forgotten century. But above all, he knew that he had to die. However, he did not know one thing, and it changes everything. If you have not understood, it is normal. Don't worry. I'm here for that, so to better help you follow the end of Egg. And all these revelations, we will have to make one small leap in time. 3 months ago, York David of Power wishes to become one celestial dragon and decides then to betray his happiness. She informs the world government that Vegapunk works on the forgotten century and secretly continues Ohara's search. Several ships of the Slifferpole are therefore sent to Egg to investigate. But thanks to camouflage technology, the government cannot find the landfill where, and Metz therefore does not find anything compromising. York actually plays one triple game and decides to capture government agents in secret, in case the latter decides to trick her. About 1 month ago, the government asks York to steal one fragment of Mauser Phlegm to use their new weapon. The satellite decides to manipulate the king of mechanical mothers and send it to distribute the precious fragment. Not to be spotted, York skillfully manipulates Pancacord data and hides all changes in the registers. Labo face like this 2 weeks ago, everyone is the first to realize a change. Abnormal data in the power plant of the island. He therefore only informs Stella and Pythagoras. At first, the elite is suspected, but the three companions decide to take 1 week to investigate and to trap the real culprit of this fact. 7 days ago, Vegapunk discovers that York betrayed him and communicates in secret with the government for almost 3 months without understanding what motivates her. If perhaps it is not greed. 1 day later, so 6 days ago, VK Punk learns about the destruction of Leluzia and understands especially that only Mauser Fleam is able to release so much energy, and deduced that York stole one fragment from him. The scientist starts to feel guilty. Understanding that, because of its invention, the world government now has an antique weapon. Yes, the test on the Lucia is conclusive, and VK Punk is no longer of any use for the world government, who orders his only Mauser Flame problem is not yet perfect. Then the government counts on York to continue the work of Vegapunk and perfect Mauser Flame. Because the genie must die, its stingy satellite finally holds her entrance ticket to Marie Joisse. So 3 days ago, the sniper Paul Zero is sent to the scene to kill the scientist. But fearing Egg's technological resistance, and especially the shenanigans of the most intelligent man in the world, one Boster Cole of unprecedented magnitude, led by Kidsaro, and one of the 5 deans himself, Saint Jagardia Saturn, is also sent to the site. The next day, 2 days ago, VK Punk, Each, and Pythagoras decide to take action and to trap the world government. He decides to record one message to the whole world by telling them everything they know about the secrets of this world and its forgotten century. For that, Vegapunk decides to hide the Den Mouthy of transmission in and Metz, but is surprised by York. Stella decides then programmed the broadcast of the message to his death and decides to erase the memory of the last 2 weeks so that York can't discover that Vegapunk was aware of, because remember, every day satellites must synchronize with Punk, record to update each of them with the same information. So BK Punk won it against York so that the latter simply cannot discover their own information. When he wakes up and without understanding why, Vegapunk discovers one note of himself, asking him to trust him and to negotiate. That's why the next day, so 1 day ago, Vegapunk contacts her former revolutionary friend, Moon, who says dragon, and informs him that he knows he will die soon. Sweet, you know it. That's why in chapter 1016, York had understood that Vegapunk knew about her from the beginning, but don't understand why. He was really surprised by her betrayal, simply because she had not imagined that he could erase his memory. That's why in the same chapter, it included, finally, where was the Den Mouthy of transmission? Because simply, she was with him when the scientist had hidden it in and Mets. If the mangaka takes one chapter to show us that Vega's message, Punk was recorded 2 days ago, it is good to indicate us one thing but then very important. Yes, Vegapunk had absolutely everything planned except one thing. Always and again the same thing that nobody sees coming. But that changes everything every time. Yes, of course I want to talk about him always and again. 2 days ago, at the time of recording his message, Vegapunk had still not met Moon, who says Luffy. He had not made the link between him and the Warrior of Liberation. One link he will make 24 hours later. Yes, Moon, who says Luffy and Nika, he is Joy Boy. But this, even the greatest of geniuses did not see it coming, and he could not tell the rest of the world, because he didn't know it yet. In other words, if Vegapunk could have recorded his message 24 hours later, the latter would have been totally different, and would necessarily have made the mention, Straw Hat. That's why we learned today that the last words of the professor are in reality, one wish the wish, that the Mugiwara become those who get the one, since he heard the drums of liberation, since he realized that Kuma was right, since he saw the scarlet shape of Nika, and the elastic powers of Toy Boy. It did not, no doubt for the most intelligent man in the world, that Monkey the Luffy must absolutely be the next king of the pirates. Like, made of me. Telugu. You're right, well, you're right, we want Saturday. Badolo, goodbye, Benwat, and you go down, angel your hand. Is that only one? Otherwise it is Sandy. In one, and more particularly the Shonen Maketsu. The promise is sacred, and it is extremely rare that characters do not hold. Then when in the chapter 1005, Sanji Vinsmoke made the promise to Bonnie to bring back Vegapunk. What was our surprise when we saw it? Fail at the task. But I might as well tell you that the most virtuous prince of Grand Line knew very well what he was doing. Because how to save someone who does not want to be saved. We learned today that Vegapunk, at this point in the promise, had in reality already asked Sandy to let him die. At the time, the cook was already making a smile, it of the big brother who tries to reassure. Like that day on Zioni Chat, it shows something, but clearly thinks the opposite. Sandy has a lot of empathy. and therefore puts himself in the place of others all the time to suffer from it. It makes us one little one Corazon, and it adds a lot of depth to the characters. Today, as everyone celebrates the departure, he is the only one who is not quiet. One direct echo at the end of Walker Highland, where he was already the only one overcome with regret and guilt. It weighs on the conscience, and it is normal, because he had the last and real words of Vegapunk. The first time Shibaff was mentioned in 1. It was in chapter 116, published on 13/12/1999. It was almost 25 years ago, and today we are going... Finally, it's the emotions. We are in 2024. I don't know. No work that will have had the insolence to keep waiting. 25 years, these readers, and madness. This length, and especially the rigor of the mangaka in his writing, it gives another dimension to the work, that of really being part of the journey. Because there is no more possible excuse. Because he, too, wants to become a brave warrior of the seas. Usopp will have to shine. And it falls well, for he is already worse god for the giants. Remember, after saving Dory and Brogy on Little Garden, then Imot loose, on Ain's lobby, and finally Aradrin on Dress Rossat, Usopp will be welcomed as one king by the former, and especially the new crew of the giants, which is also part of the Mugiwara fleet. If until then we were on the island of the future, this time we head to the island of the past, where traditions and memory, you plant everything else, especially since the history of Elbaf could never be corrupted by that of the world government. The country is locked up. Like Minokuni, nobody dares to approach it. If the author has waited 25 years before showing us the island of the giants, is because it carries within it the history of this world, the legend of Nika and the Wara library. And finally, the mangaka can therefore give us long revelations. Before the one that necessarily of love tale between Big Mom, Lucky, Nika, Uruji, Ashop, Odd, Punk Rogers, or Kaido Doflamingo and Scissored Cloud. A lot of people are strictly and directly linked at Elbaf, and maybe a whole video is needed. So if you want to have the recap, ultimate in everything we know about Elbaf for the last 25 years, tell us in comments like this. It's one secret for nobody. Giant passive one soap. Without a bad pun with Elbaf. And fortunately, because it is totally absent, or almost since the abandonment of its acquired on Rossat Dress, we too quickly forgot this dangaree. Yes, the achievement of controlled observation allows us to see into the future, but the one in Soapy showed us something new, allowing to perceive the storms of the people, several kilometers away, and even through obstacles. All this had surely been fortune gifted by Etheroda, with Van Aher on the island of Jaya. For them, it was in chapter 758 over 10 years ago, and he never has redone since. Speaking of powerful achievements, as Dory and Broglie say, that of Joy Boy seems to surpass all this, of which the one of Shanks and Roger. Yet living reference of the Haki of the Kings, the Haki of Joy Boy seems to be logically the Nikitsu objective to be reached, for the main character of one, and therefore for Luffy, the most powerful Haki of Kings in the world, but also of history, thus surpassing that of Shanks, and becoming as powerful as Joy Boy's. At the end of the manga, but who it can be that Joy Boy at the end. So on Egged, everyone seems to have it, but no news of Saturn 1, surely voluntary blur from the mangaka, to make us believe that he will die quietly. In Marijoise, when in fact no, it will be Katarina, came to implement the Blackbeard plan. Accompanied, I hope, by Caribou. Caribou, that one shot him, Caribou on the vacant throne. Caribou that finds the one. Caribou, which is the one. Caribou, mentor of the main character in Tupis. Attention, new film in theaters. One Brown, the soft wick. Caribou buying Rhino Shield shells directly via the link in the description, and benefit from a 10% discount thanks to the code of my crow. But who realizes that there is no design in his effigy? Sad Caribou. Caribou leaves piracy. Caribou becomes dentist for Blackbeard Wait. This is not insignificant. The one for whom science is more important than everything else, for whom concrete results are essential. The one who wants proof and answers, finally trusts his message with his eyes closed. Without having any proof, no information, he does not hesitate to react with this chocolate, and Tirada synthesizes with brilliance the main duality of its narrative arc, that of science, empirical and rational in the face of spiritual religion, moral and ethical, seen as opposite areas. The author will not be afraid to bring them together on egg and show us their complementarity. Science to explain the world, and creativity to explore its meaning. In other words, even the greatest scientist could not predict one human miracle. So until the end, the mangaka will have perfectly illustrated his words of aided, where the perfectly scientific harmony stop with the perfectly human contradiction. Because what this arc tells us in the end is that Vegapunk has totally succeeded. He created real human beings capable of empathy, to succeed in failing to sacrifice and even betray. Because who asked Atlas to sacrifice himself? Who asked Stacy to spare Kaku? Who asked to help the Mugiwara? Who asked York to betray Vegapunk? Nobody, when they are all Jewish beings. They all did it of their own free will. All have their own qualities, as their own defects, creating this magnificent note of complexity and human contradiction. One well-programmed robot is easy to anticipate, but one human being with everything going on in his head, it is totally. Vegapunk immediately suspected the elite, while in the end, she will be the only one to continue her legacy, and never suspected York, while it is the only one programmed. From the VDT, it is necessary to believe that it is not part of science, because if regarding the progress, VK Punk is unparalleled in terms of emotional intelligence. It will be necessary to go back. In the end, even the greatest genius still had a lot to learn. Here is the author's message. The complexity in human nature cannot be studied with algorithms and numbers, as his feelings cannot be. Sometimes it's just enough to believe it like that. Because you can kill one man, but not his ideas. Some will transmit their will by science and progress, and others by faith and belief. Today, one miracle happened, because the two met and got along. That day on Egg Helps Island, the believer was saved by science, and the scholar was saved by faith.